what is next for you in creatine? Like, what is in your mind, like, if you're going to bet the farm, or is that sort of how you guys operate? Are you trying to just push the needle forward a little bit, or like what is groundbreaking or things that you get excited about of the potential of creatine and its use for?
Yeah, so I think particularly the benefits of creatine on the brain when the brain is stressed, or certain situations like Alzheimer's disease or dementia. We know that brain creatine levels are lower in those situations, so they might benefit from creatine. So that population would be really interesting to study. Also, following concussions or traumatic brain injuries is another area. There's a couple very limited studies in humans, and they showed improvements in some of the recovery and symptoms following a traumatic brain injury. But we need to do much more research, and I believe that creatine can almost be protective to the brain. So if you take creatine before you get a brain injury or a concussion, it could actually help the brain in those situations as well.
In the difficulty with the blood-brain barrier, does creatine, I mean, so often it's just sold as the conspicuous magic white powder. Is there any other, in any of the research that's been done, any other method of delivery that has a greater bioavailability? Like, how is injectable, or does intravenous, does that change the amount, that the effect that it has, or is it always just sort of taken in the same powder, water, glucose drink, whatever it is?
Yeah, so if you combine it, if you just mix creatine monohydrate and water, it's almost 100% absorbed. So it's like 99.9% absorbed. So it's going to get into the bloodstream. So that's not, you don't have to inject creatine, which is kind of nice. There is some evidence that if you combine creatine with a carbohydrate or a protein source that stimulates insulin, that can help with creatine uptake into the muscle, and presumably that might help at the brain level as well. So there's a few things that you can try to do. We also know that exercise sensitizes the muscle for creatine uptake. So if you take creatine close to your exercise session, particularly when you're loading with creatine, it might get a little bit more creatine into the muscle as well. But those are some things that were some of the nuances with regards to creatine supplementation.
Can you like aerosolize it? I know a lot of peptides, or some peptides that are cognitive enhancing, that are just like straight into the dome. Is mechanistically, does it carry weight? How much, like how volatile is the actual compound of creatine, and how much can you manipulate its method of distribution to start in the case of the blood-brain barrier, start crossing the blood-brain barrier, like whether it be with a carrier like glucose, or potentially going like intranasal? Does it have potential of just not being effective, or is it like, no, this thing's pretty stable, you can beat the shit out of it and it's still going to get there and do its thing?
So creatine is very stable, except in a liquid. And then it starts to be broken down into creatinine. And so this is why, like if you see an energy drink, for example, that claims to have creatine within it, and it's liquid, it probably doesn't actually have any creatine in it. So there was a company that was recently sued for hundreds of millions of dollars because it claimed that it actually had creatine in that particular energy drink.
Super creatine, if memory serves me correctly, only the super creatine. So by putting that on there, that is a false claim, because it can't exist in a liquid. So it's like epoxy. You got to like mix it with another thing. It's a binary substance.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that company was sued for, I believe, over $600 million. And yeah, they lost a lot of money for putting super creatine on that drink.
So it wasn't even the super part that got him in trouble. It was just the fact that, like, nah, dog, once it's in liquid in a can in a distribution center in Houston, it's not creatine anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of the problem with the nasal sprays as well. So if you try to have some sort of spray, it's probably going to involve some sort of liquid. So I don't know if that's possible, but I did see some research where they did have like a creatine nasal spray They just like mixed it quickly, put it into the spray, and then took it nasally. And they did show some increases in creatine uptake in those situations.
Now, when we're dealing with the creatinine that is formed as a byproduct of being in liquid, does that then pose with it any problems, dangers, concentration concerns, anything like that? Or it gets in the body and kind of just, you might spike a higher creatinine level on a blood test or something like that?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. You'll just spike a higher level. But typically, creatinine is used as an indicator of kidney function. So if you go to the doctor and they take a blood sample, for example, they'll measure your creatinine levels. And if that starts to go up, in a normal situation, if you're not taking creatine, that might be an indication that your kidneys are not filtering correctly. But if you're taking creatine, or if you're consuming a lot of protein or training really hard as well, those can all elevate creatinine levels. And your doctor might think, whoa, something's going on with your kidneys. Like, what are you doing? Oh, you're on creatine, go off creatine. But the fact of the matter is that it's actually not damaging your kidneys. It's just a normal part of creatine metabolism.